Hey, it's Mazzy from San Francisco. Pizza, San Francisco, get it? Golden Gate Bridge as the slices. Is this the biggest Grateful Dead vinyl box ever? This thing? Let's see. This is the Lyceum 1972 Grateful Dead. Now, let me do a little bit of a background. This is not just an unboxing. I don't do just unboxings. But growing up in San Francisco, I was born in the Haight, on the tip of the Haight-Ashbury, looking across Golden Gate Park. First saw the Grateful Dead in 1968 as I rode my bike with my buddy to Golden Gate Park and to Haight Street. And we saw that infamous show with the Grateful Dead in the spring of 1968. Young lads we were on Haight Street. We're on the back of the flatbed trucks playing. And of course, my first record when I was homesick, my mother went to buy me a record and she brought me back the very first Grateful Dead album in 1967. So that is my entree into the Grateful Dead. Of course, into the whole realm of the Grateful Dead live shows, there are so many Dead freaks that know so much more than I do, the day-to-day stuff and the best version of Dark Star and the best version of the other and everything. And of course, this was one of the first great double live albums ever, Live Dead, from 1969. And it's from these shows. These are the Fillmore West shows, the 27th of February, the 28th of February, and March 1st. These are 3 out of the 4 Dead sets of this show. Hopefully there'll be the 4th night they'll complete off this series for Record Store Day at some point up the line. Amongst the best Grateful Dead period in my opinion. Now, I did go see the Grateful Dead 3 New Years in a row. 1970, 71 New Year's Eve at the Winterland, 71, 72 at Winterland, and 72, 73 Winterland. The first show, I think Stoneground was on the bill, as well as the New Riders of Purple Sage. In 72 and 73, it was also New Riders of Purple Sage and Sons of Champlin. 1 year, that in-between year, I think is when they temporarily changed their name to Yogi Phlegm. Of course, in 1972, this great triple album, the first triple live album, as I recall, Europe 72 comes out. I remember going downtown, Market Street. Musicland had an entire wall of these two lined up, alternating the covers on the wall. The whole side wall was plastered with that album. Years later, Volume 2 came out, and of course, I think the biggest box set's got to be the Europe 72 full trunk CD. I do not have that. I didn't go in on that, and I'm just talking about vinyl here. So we're talking about Lyceum in, April and May of 1972. They did a Western European tour, and this huge, massive box just came out. Oi, this thing is massive. The biggest vinyl box set by the Grateful Dead, from the Grateful Dead. I'm trying to think what I have bigger than this. George Harrison box set? Beatles? Mono? Stereo box? Look at this. This is only available, the 24 LP edition, through the Grateful Dead site directly. There are separate folios. Remember, this is the Lyceum. They did 4 shows at the Lyceum in London in 1972, and these are the complete recordings from that show. Now, I did a preview on this album in April when they first announced it, sort of a coming, and I talked about that. I'll put a link below that. That's a shorter, sort of an intro video. And I talked about Europe 72. Now, Europe 72 is a fantastic album. The thing about Europe 72, it was fixed in the studio. There's a lot of overdubbing, of instrumentation, of vocals to make it what it was. But I think that's really wonderful. Now, in terms of recording, there's been a lot of talk lately about digital versus analog. This is from a digital transfer because they use a plangent process. The plangent process has been great for, I know Springsteen reissues, but especially since we're talking about the Grateful Dead, for Live Dead shows in general, the plangent process has been used extensively. And it's actually a really good digital I wouldn't say filter, but a fix that gets rid of any wow and flutter, gets rid of distortion, and it really improves on the tapes. And some will say, well, why don't you just buy the CDs? There is a difference. I've had some of these sets where I have CDs as well as vinyl. And at least in my system, and I have a good digital transport system as well, the vinyl to me sounds better. Now, of course, when you're playing a lot of ongoing tapes, a lot of people, a lot of Grateful Dead long shows, they just want downloads and they want CDs, and all the power to you, respect for you. But there is a certain aesthetic and feel and sound that is improved when these recordings are made. I think what I want to do is at the end of this, you're going to see a series of photographs that I took at the 72, 73 New Year's Eve show. So at the very end, there'll be a little kind of a run out with some color transparencies, color photographs I took of the Grateful Dead. All these have these separate boxes. There are 4 separate boxes of each show. This has the 23rd of May, the May 23rd show, the May 24th show. Beautiful artwork. I love this set. The May 25th show, and the May 26th show. Once you open it up, they have polyline sleeves. I'm not going to go through every one. They don't have separate covers in the boxes. They're like this. Again, plangent processes and spot checking. I did look through these a little bit. They look very clean, very flat. So I'm going to play tonight as many as I can, and then I'll come back, finish this video off, and just give you my initial impression. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all 24 LPs for you. That's for you to figure out. That's for you to enjoy. I listened to 11 sides. That's a lot of Grateful Dead, but there's nothing like a Grateful Dead concert, and this stuff is just fantastic. This period, the Europe 72 album was the first album of the Dead that came out with Donna and Keith Godchaux on it. And again, as I said, amongst my very favorite period of the Dead. I think after these shows, and they didn't play Winterland in the 73, 74, because Bill Graham moved that weekend, the New Year's Eve show, to the Cow Palace, and the Dead decided not to play, and the Allman Brothers, Marshall Tucker Band played. Although, as I recall, I went to that show, and I was bummed, because Allman Brothers, they were at a peak then, they were great, but the Dead decided not to play. But Jerry Garcia and a couple members showed up and jammed with him a little bit, and it was fantastic. Although that's a giant, larger hall, and of course Winterland, there's a certain soulness and familiarity that I really liked with Winterland. I did go to 3 of the 1973 Winterland shows, so that's been out in various formats as well. So I'm not going to all talk about the Dead. There's so many channels and people that can get in way more, but I've seen the Dead over 20 times, 23 times, which basically that's like an amateur compared to most Deadheads. But I feel I saw amongst my favorite period. So in terms of this record, flat pressing, quiet pressing, I said it uses a plangent process, which I think is really a remarkable thing, and it's really improved on these recordings. And they went in they recorded every show on that tour. And again, that large trunk CD case, which is beautiful. I've seen in person and heard a lot of these shows already. Some of these appear on the Europe 72 actual final album that came out in November 72. But it's really great recordings. I think what's nice about these recordings, they're professionally recorded. Warner Brothers wanted to, this was an expensive tour to produce and put on, so Warner Brothers really encouraged them to do a live album and help finance, did a collaboration with the Grateful Dead. So again, I'm not going to get near every song or every recording, but ultimately this is a great sounding collection so far of what I've heard. So I've heard 25% of the box set, The Grateful Dead, Lyceum, 24 LPs, I think it's 24 LPs. A lot of friggin' records for a box set. I'm sure many people will be happy with the CD or a fraction thereof. They did just reissue Europe 72. Again, it's probably plangent, so it's not all analog. If you want all analog, you got to go back to 72. I don't know if the Chris Bellman reissue some years back. I didn't love it. The Vinyl Me Please box, I think that could be a analog, but again, these days we have no idea. But to me, with these recordings, it doesn't matter. They're not promoting it in any way, saying it's all analog. In fact, they've been promoting the plangent process for several years now, and it's been a highlight, making these Grateful Dead recordings sound, better than the bootleggers and the downloaders have ever heard. So highly recommended. If you're a Deadhead, again, San Francisco, I love you. Love me some Grateful Dead. Thanks for watching. Hope that gives you a little preview. Mazzy loves you.